Okay, so if I can welcome everybody and thank you all for coming. We've got a series of reports on cycling and also on smart cities issues in relation to transport. So if I just start with the preliminaries, I don't think there are any apologies for absence because all the members of the board are here.
Chairman, just to report, Councillor Tim, Chairman of the Joint Assembly, is appointed today. Councillor Hickford, Vice Chairman of the Assembly, is here on his behalf.
Welcome, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman.
So then we can take the minutes of the previous meeting. Are people happy to confirm the minutes?
Okay.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Confirm the minutes. Any declarations of interest from members of the board in any of the items? You can, of course, declare interest at the time as well. Any? No? No declarations of interest. So public questions. So it's the choice of people who want to ask the questions and who want to ask them now. I've got Edward Leigh first. So Edward circulated a document which is available with the papers of the meeting, which I presume will publish as part of the documents of the meeting as well. Thank you. Thank you, Edward. The question is, you've got 3 minutes, so you can use that how you choose. But I do urge people who've not gone to the length that Edward has gone to and the detail to just focus on the question that they've tabled. Thank you, Edward.
I want to talk about the bigger vision for transport in Greater Cambridge. I know you are absolutely clear that we need to get more people onto public transport, which mainly means buses, and that's a big challenge for practical, social and financial reasons. In the first place, we need park and ride sites on all arterial roads into the city, making them easily accessible to as many people as possible and minimising the need to travel on the M11 and A14 to reach one. I believe there's a strong case for about 8 or 9 new sites. These would be complemented by a network of cycle and ride hubs in the villages and outskirts of the city, like we have along the guided busway, and bus and cycle hubs within the city. That will take some pressure off roads, but it won't solve the problem. Many people just do not like buses and prefer sitting in their own car in a queue to get into a city centre car park. Also, park and ride sites have been shown to abstract users from regular bus services, making those less financially viable, leading to a reduction in rural services and more people having to drive to park and ride sites. If indeed they have a car, there is a real danger that the poorest living in rural communities will be cut off from the city. So how do we change transport habits? The solution I would like you to consider is known as gating or queue relocation. Vehicles are held at points outside the city where there is space to increase road capacity. Traffic lights connected to queue detectors in the roads ahead release vehicles only as fast as they can move freely. A bypass lane allows emergency services, buses and maybe other classes of road users to skip the queues. Others can make an informed choice about using park and ride or public transport from home rather than as now chancing it and driving into the city. I've identified a possible 16 locations where roads would need to be gated, mostly close to park and ride sites. These measures, building more park and ride sites and gating, are definitely affordable within the city deal, and there would still be plenty of money left over for improving the road network, creating new rail connections and building world-class infrastructure for cycling and walking. I'm working with a small group of people currently resourced by the cycling campaign to expand on our vision for enabling everyone to use the most convenient and appropriate combination of driving, public transport, cycling and walking to get around Greater Cambridge. I would welcome the opportunity to discuss how we can develop this vision and present it to you for public consultation in the autumn. And I would just draw your attention to the other part of what has been circulated to you, which is a longer version of this speech, which goes into a little bit more detail about the background and arguments for this particular direction that we're suggesting.
Okay, thank you, Edward. I think The first point is we don't actually have an item on today's agenda on this, but we clearly are planning ahead for a consultation in the autumn. So I'm happy to meet you and discuss what you're proposing and the input that you're getting from others. We, as a board, recognise that one of our objectives is to significantly shift journeys from cars to other routes, particularly the percentage of the journeys that are made in the future needs to be a much higher percentage non-car. And we haven't got any prescription for that at the moment, but we do plan to consult, including the traffic generators, but also a broader consultation in the autumn. And that's the best route to feed into this. I think there is a consensus among us that we do need to invest significantly more in park and rides, and then it's a question of what mix does that include. We also recognise the need to tackle congestion as part of looking at the investments that we're sequentially looking at over the next few months. So unless we address, with whatever solution we come forward with, including considering options, including the gating that you proposed, unless we address that fundamental issue about traffic car numbers, then we're not going to be able to get the benefit from the broader investment that we're planning. So thank you for your input. I'm happy to meet up. There will be the consultation that we've already started outlining and which we'll go forward with in the autumn. So the next question is, if you want to take it now, is from Jim Chisholm.
Afternoon. I worked for a volunteer for many years on this project and never expected to carry my name. It was quite moving to hear in July the words of support and the unanimous support for the Assembly to recommend to this board that we approve this project for our meeting today. It was also good to see that even the objectors at the Assembly meeting supported the principles of the route. It is understandable that some had concerns over the route and its details, as on the agenda for both the Assembly and this meeting. There is now on the City Deal website a revised proposal of the route with some significant changes. I do hope the board and any objectors have had an opportunity to see that. We all need to work better and communicate better to ensure our main differences are resolved before a more definite route goes to public consultation in the autumn. The completed route should give many who currently drive from, say, Milton to Addenbrooks or Trumping to the Science Park a more pleasant and healthy option by cycling and hence reduce congestion within Cambridge. It should also add value to other developments such as the Cambridge North Station. Of course, as a campaigner and a pragmatic idealist at that, I'll always ask for more. So I have two questions. There's a lack of good evidence about the mode changes that occur when good facilities for cycling are constructed. Before and after studies are needed, and not just council cycles. Will that happen? And finally, the improved access for both cycling and walking on the east side of the railway would give much added value to an eastern entrance to the main railway station. This was proposed as a means of reducing congestion in the station area in 1950 in the Holford report. Hills Road should have reduced congestion and there will then be added benefits for the Chisholm Trail. Will that happen? I look forward to working towards a successful public consultation in the autumn. And as an addendum, I noticed comments in today's Cambridge News that I'm being accused of being anti-motorist, and not for the first time. One year, whilst in a research arm of DFT, I actually reached the finals of the Civil Service Motorist of the Year. I even kept a little plaque to prove it. I wonder how many other anti-motorists can claim that fame.
Thank you, Jim. Two different questions to the one we were expecting, but
well,
nevertheless ones that we can try and answer. So first of all, what are we thinking of in terms of quantifying the mode changes? So we're planning to do some pre and post impact analysis.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Through you, yes, as a matter of course, on major schemes, we would undertake those sorts of studies. So the most recent significant one was the busway, when we looked at both car traffic, cycling, pedestrian movements. We got cycle counters down on the route itself. So yes, that sort of work would be normal practice. And in fact, on the busway, we specifically did the piece of work through Atkins to quantify the benefits. And so we would be looking, with whoever, we can work with to identify benefits. So yeah, that's definitely built in. On the second one, as the chairman said, I wasn't really primed for this question, so I'm not entirely sure actually, Jim, what it is what you're referring to.
There have been several proposals. They were actually presented to the City Council by Network Rail in 2010 or 11 to have an access for at least cycling, walking from the east side, basically an extension to the existing overbridge with a modular entrance on the eastern side, so that people don't have to come all the way around to get access to the station. I don't think anybody would expect to be open the same hours as the existing entrance, but it would be an easy way of reducing the congestion at the main entrance.
Okay, I suspect that's what you were, Chairman, through you, what you were talking about, but I just wanted to be clear. I think there are broader issues that need to be considered, and I'm certainly aware of that work, not least of all working with train operating companies and Network Rail and land issues in that area. But I mean, it's certainly something that I'm sure, whether it be through the City Hall Board or individually the councils, will continue to look at with Network Rail, because I mean, it clearly has the potential for significant benefits. So I think probably it's more difficult to say in relation to your question, yes, that will definitely happen, as I did in the first one, but it's certainly something that's been on, as you say, the agenda for a long time and would have benefits.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Yeah, as the councillor for that area at the end of the trail, there clearly are issues at both ends. I mean, it is enough for us to consider the proposal for the trail, but there are clearly consequential issues at both ends about how the trail and the cycling linkages fit into the routes that we want to follow. For instance, the trail at the end links into the long cycleway that's parallel to the guided busway, but it needs to answer some of the other questions, including that access. And I think there are also reports coming up to area committees in the autumn about the study that the county council has done of access, other ways of crossing the rail at that point.
Yes.
So yes, it would be nice to think that the problems of Cambridge railway station could be solved by creating an east side to it, but it might take a while.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Mr. Blencow, do you want to ask your question as
Okay,
well?
yeah.
Which follows up from the contribution from Robin Pellew at the meeting of the Assembly and further discussions, I understand.
That's right, yes. I'm speaking as the trustee of Cambridge Past, Present and Future, who are the custodians of the Letter Chapel, and the Letter Chapel is on the prospective route for the Chisholm Trail. Cambridge PPF would like to reiterate its strong support for the Chisholm Trail, and we also welcome the proposal that the Letter Chapel becomes a focus for it, and appreciate that the trail properly routed will improve the visibility and the accessibility of the chapel. Furthermore, we support the plans for a cafe and a public car park on the south side of the Newmarket Road. We met again, as you said, Mr. Chairman, with the consultant John Grimshaw at the Leper Chapel on the 23rd of July, and both Cambridge PPF and Mr. Grimshaw agree that the original preferred route, with the underpass opening directly in front of the chapel, is unacceptable and should be withdrawn from consideration. We understand, in fact I think now we've seen confirmation, that Mr. Grimshaw has submitted an alternative plan to the County Council that moves the underpass further to the east along the Newmarket Road. This is a significant and much welcomed improvement. Assuming that this new route is accepted by you, the board, we believe it provides a more acceptable basis for consultation, and we've already made a number of further detailed comments to Mr. Grimshaw. However, as custodians of this Grade 1 listed site, we still believe that the nearer the underpass is moved towards Coldhams Brook, the less impact there will be on the chapel, and thus the more acceptable the route will be. We're told that it's not possible to locate the route any closer to the brook than the new location proposed by Mr. Grimshaw for drainage reasons. We aren't experts, but we do question this. There are subways constructed below the groundwater table that don't flood, both elsewhere in Cambridge and certainly in other cities. Holland, I imagine, would be chock-a-block if that weren't the case. Clearly, this is more a matter of cost than of engineering, and this raises the question of how much it is worth to protect the setting of Cambridge's oldest entire building. Cambridge PPF is working with the City Council to carry out a heritage survey of the chapel curtilage and an ecological survey of the chapel meadow. Common sense, we suggest, would dictate that the best route can be decided only when these surveys have been completed in the spring of next year. Until this information is available, whilst reiterating our support for the trail, we believe that we all need to keep our options open on the final optimal route.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blencow. I'm pleased that we've made some progress on the issue in between the two meetings.
Yes.
I think obviously we've got the item on our agenda, but the proposal would be, as you mentioned in your question, to consult on the revised route that's been discussed with you, but to keep the options open.
Thank you.
I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Mr. Hughes.
No, Chairman, just briefly, as you say, I mean, I think good progress has been made, and a number of conversations have taken place, and it's been very useful. There's always a balance. I mean, you talk about cost and you talk about engineering issues. There is always a balance. I mean, most things, one way or another, can be engineered, but ultimately there does have to be a balance to be considered. So, what we want to do is to continue to talk with Cambridge PPF. We're very keen to reach an agreement that suits everybody. And so, subject to the board's decision today, we hope we can actually commence a consultation process, but as with all of these schemes, that's only the start rather than the end of the process, and we want to continue talking, if the board approves the scheme for consultation, continue to talk to Cambridge PPF to try and resolve the outstanding issues as we take that forward. So I think we've, between us all, established a very constructive dialogue and have moved between us quite a long way already, so we hope that can continue.
Yeah, I think that's right, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for your input, and the commitment is there that there's a continued discussion during the period of the consultation, whilst going out to consultation, at least on a proposed route.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Blencow. And fourth, we have Roxanne de Beaux from the Cambridge Cycling Campaign. Hi.
Hi. Thank you. I'm the Cycling Campaign Officer for the Cambridge Cycling Campaign, speaking on behalf of the campaign. On behalf of the Cambridge Cycling Campaign, I would like to express our support for the proposed consultation for the cross-city cycle routes and for the Chisholm Trail. Improving infrastructure for people to cycle into and around Cambridge will have numerous benefits at an individual, community and business level. Research has shown that employees choose companies based on their ability to cycle to work. People choose where to live based on their ability to cycle for their travel needs. People who cycle are more productive at work. People who cycle spend more money in the local economy. Societies where people cycle benefit from reduced congestion and reduced air pollution. And members of the millennial generation are less likely to own a car or desire ownership of a car. Cross-city cycle routes are just one part of making a transport system that can support growth. We look forward to seeing the details of these plans and working with the councils and their consultants to ensure the improvements can best meet the needs of cyclists and other road users. We strongly believe that the focus of cycling investment in the coming years must be on improving the radial roads in Cambridge and the inner ring road. These are extremely poor for cycling, but housing growth means there is no space to expand routes along slower green areas. Areas like Newmarket Road desperately need a complete redesign and would like the City Deal to perhaps be more ambitious in proposing some improvements here in the coming years. We also urge the City Deal to apply further consideration to the roundabout at Fen Causeway and Lensfield Road. While we are aware of the plans to make improvements here, we ask the City Deal to perhaps consider more ambitious and effective solutions for one of the worst intersections in Cambridge. The City Deal is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and we urge the City Deal Board to be bold in their plans so that the infrastructure of this city can be as world-leading as the technology and discoveries that our city is known for. The Cycling Campaign and other groups are working together to make suggestions about how this can be achieved, and we hope to share these with you in the coming months. I'd just like to reiterate we're very happy to see these coming to consultation, and we'll be hoping to partner with you and make them very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. In terms of just an initial response to that, overall, I think, as you'll see from the agenda, that there is a significant area of common agreement on some of the solutions that need to be progressed. So we welcome what you've said about continuing to work on them, because there's quite a lot of detail to be worked through, particularly on some of those on-road cycling improvements. I guess what we would say is that in terms of the research statement, there's ways of putting that section, the bullet points. Research does show these things, but it's not like 100%. It's just that there's an increase in the benefits there. In terms of Newmarket Road, as you'll hear from the board quite often, if we'd had the 500 million in one go, then we would have had a programme for Newmarket Road. But I think, in my calculation, if I recall right, Mr. Hughes, the total for that was approaching £100 million. So there is a firm commitment to improve Newmarket Road. I think the issue for us was that within the options of committing the first £100 million, in simplistic terms, we could have either done Newmarket Road in the first 5 years, or we could do a basket of other projects. So the commitment is there to Newmarket Road. Ben Causeway and Lensfield Road. It is an intractable roundabout, and I think we can take away the principle that we will continue to look at that. But as you'll be aware, the road space on that double roundabout is so restricted that despite efforts, the County Council hasn't come up with proposals in the last 20 years that have been able to come up with a significant improvement. Yeah, but we welcome working with you, and clearly there is a lot more to be done. And then when we look at some of the other projects on the city centre and on the radial routes, there will be other discussions to be had about how to make the city a better place for cyclists.
Look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Victoria Wallace is also speaking on the Chisholm Trail. Sorry, Sophie Hyde, it's been forwarded, sorry. Sorry, Sophie. So, Sophie Hyde from Friends of Ditton Meadows.
Thank you. So good afternoon. My question is the board happy with the route of the Chisholm Trail at the point where it crosses the river? Now I understand that of course the bridge isn't part of your remit, but of course the trail does start and stop either side of the river. As a group, we're a small group, I will say, but we haven't got funds and resources that some of the other groups here have, but we are nonetheless passionate about it. We're concerned that, firstly, a 6 metre wide cycleway across Ditton Meadows, regardless of how close it is to the railway, is going to cause irreversible damage to the area, and also could leave it vulnerable, and I know this isn't the board's intention, but could leave it vulnerable to be used by motorised traffic in future generations. Secondly, we're concerned that the current use of modelling, the use of modelling that's out there at the moment, on which the proposal is based, is too broad. I know there's some work underway to revise this, but I'd urge the board to wait for the results of this before we push ahead to further consultation and planning. Thirdly, as far as we can tell, full consideration doesn't seem to have been given to alternative routes for crossing the river. We've been asking to certainly Cambridge Cycle Campaign to see other routes for crossing that have been considered and ruled out, and those haven't been forthcoming. So we'd like to see alternative routes that might better serve the overall transport needs of our city. And of course there are some fundamental flaws in the current river crossing point, and particularly that pinch point of the railway. So fourthly, our fourth concern is that the proposed mitigations, such as the tunnel under the railway line, which I think may have been removed from current proposals but certainly was there a couple of weeks ago, haven't been costed. So this scheme could risk absolutely hemorrhaging public money that could be spent on other things. So before passing the scheme for consultation or for planning, we urge the board to invest a little bit more time and resource in considering alternative routes, such as maybe upgrades to the Green Dragon Bridge or the Riverside Bridge, that may serve our city's needs better without the impact on Ditton Meadows. And if we can do that, we can perhaps avoid the Green Dragon Bridge being followed by a White Elephant Bridge.
Thank you, Sophie. for reasons beyond our control, we've only just seen your question and you've added several more. What I'd propose is that Mr. Hughes, if you write to me, then we'll give you a full answer. I don't know if you want to add anything in terms of the options issue, because that's probably the most pertinent issue in terms of the routing that we're going out to consultation on. But clearly there's been quite a lot of separate work before the board was established to look at tackling transport issues, including this cycle proposal.
Yes, so thank you, Chairman. Through you on that, I think essentially, the stage we're at is on this move to the whole a relatively early stage. So we have a proposal before the board today, which, if the board approves it, will be subject to a consultation. So in a way, many of the points you've raised can all be fed into that process. Clearly, we're familiar with a lot of the issues that have been raised in relation to the consultations on the Abbey Chesterton Bridge, and so they're not generally new concerns. They're ones that we're aware of and that we've sought to address wherever possible. So I think on the general issue, if the consultation is approved, and the timetable will be no doubt talked about later as we go through the paper, that's a better opportunity, if you like, to formally make the views known. As Councillor Herbert said, though, if you wish to write in, we can address at this point in time, but clearly we don't have a final route at the moment. We don't have a final scheme, because that will come out of, subject to today's decision, the consultation and the processes that follow thereafter.
Just on one point, I mean, there's no intention and no plan that this route or the part of the Chisholm Trail will be used for motorised transport. So any discussion on that would be a wholly separate and major issue, and I've got no knowledge of any suggestion that would be appropriate, and indeed people would be very quick to champion opposing that, including a number of councillors. So I mean, we're here to discuss that. If you want to drop me an email, then I will respond, assisted by Graham, because obviously there is quite a history to that element that's in the route, but we'll take the item when we come to it. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for those questions. If we can move on. It's your turn, Councillor Hickford.
Thank you, Chair.
You've been elevated, so welcome.
Thank you. You have before you a report written by the Chair of the Assembly. What I will say is, for us, the meeting on the 15th, the Assembly was a relatively short and fairly uncontentious meeting, so that was good news. I understand that you take each agenda item as it comes, and maybe I can have input afterwards, what there will be. So if we can do that, we have the report for you.
Okay, thank you for that. So yes, if we take, so we've got, that's effectively item 5, and we note one variation that could be proposed on one of those items. So we'll,
yes.
But you're welcome to have a say before each of the items. So if we take that as approved, then we can move on to the Chisholm Trail, item 6. So again, Roger, if you just want to just talk to that item, specifically the recommendations and any additional points that you want to make on on that.
Thank you, Chair. The 2 points have been made, I think. The progress with Cambridge PPF is obviously very good news. There was concern over the leper colony, leper church, and colony. What about that? I'm sure it was at one time.
What do you know?
The leper church, and obviously there is ongoing discussion with that, which is very good news. The other thing that the Assembly was concerned about was the A, which approved the proposed route for the option for the Chisholm Trail, which kind of said that there was a route set in stone, and actually what we wanted was a route agreed that could go out for consultation, and that's why the italics is there for the purposes of consultation. I think we've heard several reasons today as to why that's more than a good idea.
Okay, well thank you. We've got the route on page 28, so thank you for that, and also the useful additional wording there. Can I ask Claire Rankin to just say a few words on the proposal that's in front of us? What do you want to say, Claire? Don't kill each other in the process of deciding.
I'll kick off, but
Yeah.
Claire is here, who's actually much more engaged in the technical work, so Claire will be able to answer any detailed questions that I wouldn't be able to answer in the same level of detail. So I'll keep the introduction, Chairman, very brief.
Yep.
As members of the board know that I've read the paper, but I think probably just the key one or 2 points to make is that, as we've heard from Jim Chisholm, the Chisholm Trail has actually long been an aspiration of County Council and certainly the City Council to actually bring forward. These are the significant benefits that a north-south route linking particularly the areas of science activity in the Science Park and Business Park with the now rapidly expanding biomed campus in the south, the railway station and the city centre. So it's a really key route. One of the big issues that I think we've consistently faced over the years is the ability to fund and bring that route forward. And so the city deal clearly offers a very useful opportunity to do that. I think one of the other really important things to make, in the paper sets down some of the evidence that's been considered in terms of the economic benefit of cycling, and very significant numbers of people, as has been said a number of times in these meetings, now cycle to work and within Cambridge, and actually without that level of cycling then traffic congestion will be very, very much worse than it is. So the Chisholm Trail and the later paper on the broader cycle routes has a huge part to play in managing congestion, improving health and improving accessibility through the city. So the proposal, as Councillor Hickford has clarified from the Assembly's discussion, for consultation at this stage, the proposal is that potential scheme be subject to the decision today about consultation, with an intention of then coming back to the board in January, February with the results from the consultation and effectively a preferred recommended route. As I said in the response to Cambridge PPF, hopefully we'll continue those discussions, and any issues there should hopefully be ironed out as best we can. So really, subject to today's decision, we'd like to get up public consultation in late summer, early autumn, come back early New Year, and then move forward with design and delivery of the scheme.
Okay, thank you. So that adds on page 27 a milestone that there'll be a report back to the board and by way of the Assembly with a proposal to proceed.
Correct.
January, February, subject to any changes and issues that arise through the consultation. So we've got the report in front of us. We've had the issue raised of the Leper Chapel, and Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems to me that going ahead at this point in time is the right thing to do. A lot of the comments I've heard this morning are about nuanced factors of the route that some people feel are right or wrong, and the purpose of going out to consultation on a proposed route is to find out and flesh out all of those questions from all parts of the community. And then when it comes back for decision making, we can look at what those questions really mean and the responses to them, and whether something should have changed as a result of them, or whether it should stay as it is. So I'm quite comfortable with the overall moving forward as laid out. The one comment I would like to take on board at the moment is regards the Leper Chapel, the contribution from Chris Blencow, and that was about the surveys you're having done and asking us to wait until spring when they're ready. Well, unfortunately, the way that this city deal works is if we don't deliver schemes fairly rapidly on time and budget, and we're pushing the cycle ones as the fastest ones we can do, we won't get any more government money. We have a time scale where we have £100 million basically, and if we miss the way that we deliver those, we lose the opportunities of the next 200 and further 200. And so I urge you, if these are important details to feed into us, to find a way of getting early survey results into the consultation somehow, because I couldn't see us at this point in time agreeing to move the deadline, although the route may change and we'll see what that is. I don't want to accept anything that moves the deadline for us moving forward at pace. So just thought I'd feed that into the comments.
And I think we've established that we will continue a parallel dialogue with them on that.
I just responded that I'm aware that the ecology survey has just been,
Okay.
and it hasn't been looked at in great detail yet, but from what I understand there aren't any major issues that have come out of it. But,
Okay, on the alternate route.
on the area around the Leper Chapel for the ecology survey.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Sanders.
Well, first of all, I should declare I cycle in Cambridge almost every day. So I agree with Steve. I think it's important that we get on with this, and I just urge the officers to see what mechanisms there are to get to a final conclusion, and then to start building and finishing it really as expeditious as we can, consistent with proper consultation and all the proper process. But we really do need to get on with it.
Okay. Mr. Bruce.
Yeah, I also support the time issue and getting on with it, but agree with the proposed change of wording for the purposes of consultation.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the timetable, we will get a report back subject to it being approved in January/February, and I think we're also, the board is keen just to have a look at the time scales. That this is probably to look at this as a single. It is a single trail, but it's a series of sections, and if there are sections of it that can be moved sooner, then they will be moved sooner. So I think we've discussed and agreed that there should be a use of these timings as sort of final deadlines, but we may be able to achieve some of them sooner.
Chairman, yeah, through, I mean, we certainly could look at accelerating the programme, so I recognise the desire of the board to deliver schemes, as Councillor said, as quickly as possible. I think there are certainly some areas where we can twin track elements of work, and certainly, for example, the planning application and the engineering design, some of that can be twin tracked. There is an element of risk in the sense that if what comes out of the planning process is slightly different to what went in, then there may be some aborted work, but we could try and mitigate that as much as possible. So what we can do is to look at the programme again and identify with twin tracking and pushing as hard as possible how we can accelerate that to, as Councillor said, deliver as quickly as possible on either bits or the whole of the scheme.
I mean, I would add that probably the main risk is network rail. It's negotiating network rail on the land, getting those land issues sorted out. It's very difficult to, the communication and the feedback from it has taken a long time, and it's trying to speed that up and get them properly on board and working with us. But that's the main risk, I would say, with regards to timing, speeding them up.
Can I ask, is that with regards to Network Rail being fully involved in the consultation process, or is it actually the land that they own that we maybe need to deliver this?
They have been involved in the consultation, and we've had lots of discussions with them over a number of years. The problem is that obviously they own the land, and it is getting the right person who is high up enough to make those decisions and to feed that through, and that has been a big issue with that.
Chairman, can I just add briefly to that? I absolutely agree with that. I mean, those certainly county council members who have been engaged in various other schemes that involve Network Rail. It is, I think Claire sort of underplayed it a little bit about how difficult it is to engage with Network Rail, and they because they effectively operate with a different set of rules to most people. It is incredibly difficult. I mean, we're very happy to be challenged to work very hard with Network Rail, and there are times when additional either political or other intervention is helpful with Network Rail, but nonetheless they are, to point out, just incredibly difficult to get agreed upon within a reasonable time period, but we will do what we can to actually manage that.
Well, if we have a number of issues that we need to get Network Rail's agreement with, I'm sure the three leaders, amongst others, will be happy to give up time to progress it. But I mean, my overall point looking at the whole route is clearly we want the whole trail, but we want to progress as many of the elements of it as we can, but make a sensible package to both get planning permission for and also issue a construction and other contracts for. There are other people who may be concerned about sections of the land, so I just record really for the benefit of it being in the public domain that we've had a couple of other letters, obviously from other people along the route, but we've not been able to establish, for instance, whether their land is actually affected. So it will be part and parcel of the consultation that if there are people who want to find out is on the specific route doesn't impact on them, then we will be in a position to respond. So in relation to one a landowner in towards the north of the route, we will respond to them by email once we've investigated that.
That's correct. I mean, as the report says, we've contacted certainly most landowners that we are aware of on the route.
So the county council's contacted as many landowners as it's aware of.
Yes, exactly, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Okay, so we're anticipating that obviously the landowners have to have a say in the matter. Okay. All right, well, thank you for your contributions. I was going to propose putting the recommendations as improved by the Assembly to the board. Are people happy with putting that as revised recommendations? So we've got two recommendations that we approve the proposed route and the wording that's for the purposes of consultation, and we give approval to proceed to consultation in the autumn. And I'll just add that we've noted in the note points that have been discussed the timing that we look for a report back of January and February. So can I put those recommendations to the board? All those in favour? Thank you, and thank you for all the work that's been put into it. I think we're getting there, Jim. Okay, and thanks, Roger. Right, if we move on to the next item, which is also on cycling, we've got item 7 on cross-city cycle improvements. Any comments to add, Roger?
The Chairman, the Assembly was very encouraged by this report and was pleased to see how these schemes joined up with other schemes, both current and future schemes. It also noted, obviously, not all schemes are within the city bill, but we're pleased to see that they were actually being looked at as schemes outside the city bill. There's other sources of funding, obviously. So, as you can see from the report, there was unanimous agreement to recommend the recommendations.
All right, thank you, Roger. And clearly, it is a significant amount of funding, which is in addition to other funds that might be won and sought. Any points to add?
Well, again, Chairman, very briefly, you will have read the paper, and just to be clear that this is a paper covering a series of potential schemes, so it's across a range of cross-city cycling schemes. As Councillor Hickford said, they've been chosen in the sense that they tie in with the broader strategy and other schemes that are already in place, so there is a logic and coherence to the package. The chosen set of, or the suggested set of schemes that's in the paper has been produced from a sifting process, which have a long list of schemes. Some of those schemes in the appendices cover this detail. Some of those schemes will actually, although they score quite highly in terms of their impact, will actually be brought forward as part of other city deal package schemes. So, for example, there are proposals on Milton Road, the Sainsbury's Roundabout, and so on, which will be incorporated in those city deal packages when they come forward. The board has taken a view when they should happen. So, what we have here are a series of schemes which are in addition to the, if you like, the other main city deal packages, which will include cycling. So yes, the recommendations there for the board, and certainly strongly from an officer's point of view supported to actually get on with the consultation, because then these are again schemes that could be not necessarily the whole package, but one by one, so they could show early delivery within the overall city deal process.
Okay, so it's been the result of a lot of consultation and scoring and development. So we've got the 5 schemes on page 32 and 33. We've got the small amount for cycle parking, but which also underlines the importance of there being further attention to that, as well as some minor improvements and cut-throughs through housing areas and other places that connect them. So Fulbourne, Cherry Hinton, Eastern Access, Hills Road, Addenbrooks Corridor, East Cambridge, Arbury Road, and the important area around North Cambridge Station. Any questions, points? Councillor Camp.
Yes, thank you. I fully support everything in front of the paper here, but I get the impression from the appendix that what we've done is look at the city as a whole, the South Cambs area and city area, and try to find all the possible good ideas for cycling and kind of score them and come up with the top 2. And we had one mentioned earlier, Lensfield Road roundabout, which I believe isn't in there. So I was just wondering, is because of the possible ambitiousness of, I don't know the area very well, is it because the only solutions that would solve that are just so far off the chart that it wasn't in there, or is it under a different name, or is it something that could be considered so we could understand a bit more about the complexity of that?
Claire,
Yeah, I mean certainly as you see from the scoring list, the Lensfield Road roundabout came up very high, but the view was that because it's obviously very close to the city centre, that the access study, City Deal scheme, will have implications for that roundabout, and also we're aware that road safety, for example, are looking at that area, so that's the reason why it came out, because we felt it would be covered from either the other City Deal scheme or from elsewhere within the council. So that's why.
so it's still on the priority.
It's certainly. I mean, it's definitely a priority, and it has, I think, the highest accident rate for cyclists.
You'll have a camera, I can find it.
It's
Have I simply gone blind?
No, I don't think that's the case.
Oh no, third one down.
It's the third one down, yeah.
Second part,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
very
it
much.
says it's in current, so I know it's been looked at, and as I said, we did feel that the implications from the city access.
Much appreciated. My question really revolved on the fact that my eyesight's so poor than anything else, so I'm glad you've answered that. It's in there and there's reason for it not going ahead at this point in time. Thank you.
And several of the other schemes, as you'll note, also, if you see just considering Hills Road, considering Milton Road, considering Histon Road, we've got a lot of, considering Manningley Road, a lot of them are addressed.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly came out in that meeting and doing the scoring system, just how important cycling more is as those other City Deal schemes, or that are not specifically cycling schemes, that actually they're of really high priority for cycling.
Okay, well, it's good news that we can add £4 million investment to tackle some of the biggest sort of junctions and challenges in the cycling network. Are we happy to move to the recommendations?
Yeah.
All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, well thank you, and thank you for all the work that's been put in there. Right, your fourth and last opportunity, Councillor Hickford. So we're moving on to item 8 and the consideration of the smarter Cambridgeshire work stream. And thank you, and Noel Godfrey's going to join us as well. So do you want to add anything to the report?
Again, there was unanimous agreement from the Assembly on this. There was probably more conversation on this concerning the driverless vehicles and pods, which caught everyone's imagination than anything else. But it's all very, very important. So there was unanimous agreement that we recommend it.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that was put into considering the issues by the Assembly as well.
Thank you.
Noel, do you want to add a few words? A little bit maybe about the diagram on page 45 as well?
So, my page numbers are different.
Oh, they're different, alright. Well, there's a diagram anyway.
This
Appendix
one.
A.
Well, I'm more thinking about this one actually,
this one.
but
Okay. And I suppose this proposal has come about following on from a workshop for the City Deal Board and Assembly earlier this year. And the purpose of that workshop was really to look and see to explore whether a smart cities approach could support and complement the City Deal programme, the objectives of the City Deal. And I think the conclusion was yes, that it could, and so this is why this proposal has come about. And I suppose briefly, obviously digital technology underpins so many aspects of modern living now, but specifically emerging smart cities technology, which brings together digital connectivity, sensors, and different ways of using data in innovative ways to help solve city challenges, is very relevant to the objectives of the City Deal. And it's particularly pertinent in Greater Cambridge, where we've got the academic and business sectors with a very long, broad and deep history of developing advanced technology. So it's a good opportunity to bring that together, to work collaboratively across all sectors to develop a smart cities approach to support the City Deal objectives. And so within the proposal there's 3 sort of strands for that. It's an initial fairly short, sharp
one-year approach initially that has three strands to it. The first is looking at and this comes back to this diagram, looking at developing an architectural blueprint to make sure that the technology building blocks are in place to enable some of this stuff to happen. A second strand, which is developing a kind of digital testbed, short, small-scale pilot technologies to prove the technologies, also to enable the business and academic sector to work with us and help to showcase and start demonstrating their technology. And then a third strand, which is much more about the overall vision, supporting, how this can support the aims of the city deal for the decades to come, because a lot of the schemes, a lot of the objectives that are within the city deal programme are going to last for many decades, and it's to make sure that they're future facing and making the most use of the technology that's emerging now. So
Thank you.
it.
Okay. I think one of the part of the genesis of this is that if we can spend £1,000 using into terms of this technology that generates us a better result than £1,000 of remodelling the road structure, then that's £1,000 well spent, and there clearly are some significant potential opportunities here, but a lot more work still to do. Yeah. Any questions? Councillor Camp.
Yes, just on the architecture, to a certain extent some of the technologies that are coming along might be quite conceptual, and we're trying to plan ahead for that. So how do we know what architecture we kind of want to put in, and what kind of things are we thinking about at the moment?
Well, that is a good question, and that's really the reason for thinking about an architectural blueprint, because as you say, a lot of the technology is moving very quickly. So one of the things that we've got to try and build within that is the ability to interoperate and to be able to change things as you go. So you don't put in one bit of technology, then it's obsolete. The whole thing has to be refreshed. I have to say it's a challenge to do that, and that's where working across the sector, across all the different sectors, has been really helpful to date already. We have quite a lot of input from the computer labs, from some of the advanced technology companies in the area, actually trying to do a bit of future gazing and understanding quite where that technology is going. But you're quite right, it is going to change, and all we can do is make sure that we've got common building blocks so that we can reuse them as the technology changes around it. I think you also asked about what exactly do we mean, and part of it's about the actual connectivity to make sure that things can communicate with each other, and the other aspects are around sensors to make sure that so that part of the emerging technology enables many more things to connect with other things. From a traffic infrastructure perspective, that's things like traffic lights talking to variable messaging signs, talking to car park sensors and other things. But it's also about making sure that from a data perspective that we've got data stores that are open and we can exchange data between them in a seamless and efficient way.
If I might continue a bit. A couple of things. One of the things, apart from the sensors in the ground, is I take it we'll have to look at the top as well, so that we don't say we have line of sight transmissions or something from a mast, that we don't put new buildings in the way, or that we have a way of getting around that. I don't know that kind of stuff. But in terms of a test bed, Cambridge will obviously be ideal for a test bed where it's very difficult to move the buildings around and the roads around. So you say, well, here's a really difficult place to work in, so let's test out stuff here. But also, whatever we're testing may well have not just an inside a city output. It might say, how can you use what you're testing here to get to the next city? So are we in discussions, or can we open discussions with, say, Peterborough, for example, to say, well, if you do a bit at your end and our end, and then because if not, we might only have half a test bed.
Yes, I totally agree. We've started those discussions, not just with Peterborough, but also with Milton Keynes and some other cities, because that's exactly the point. It needs to be replicable and scalable to make sure that it's sustainable.
And thank you very much. A little bit more. From the comments earlier on from Edward Leigh on gating, not something I'd really heard about before, but I picked up on there the bit about you get to the park and ride, and you have the choice of whether to chance it to go into the city under the gating proposal. Well, under this kind of work, if you have the signs up saying it will take you 14 minutes to your destination or 43 minutes, then that kind of helps in the same principle in a different way. It doesn't do exactly the same as gating, but it just struck me as a very useful thing. The other technology that I'm seeing come along, and I don't know how that works with smart cities or whether it does at all, but I'm seeing much greater use. I've seen the odd occasion where people have bought electrically powered devices. I've seen sort of a paddle board like that where you can just stand on and go along the road. I've seen unicycles that are this high, and I've looked them up, and they do 18 mile per hour, and they go for 18 miles, and that sort of thing. So how we keep it? Does any of that play in, and how do we manage to keep an eye on what we should be keeping an eye on?
It does all play in because there are multiple solutions which are going to solve some of the traffic issues, and I think it was referenced the autonomous vehicles. You know, some people say, well, that's light years away, that's not going to happen. Other people say, well, it's quite close, and you certainly have to keep your eye on all of those different areas of technology. So we are doing that. Again, I have to say that's where the collaboration that we've already got within the business and academic sectors in Cambridge is really helpful, because we've got people talking to us about, you know, where some of those new developments are coming on stream. I'm not sure whether unicycles is going to form part of it, but certainly it's just keeping that eye on right across the piece.
They were self-balancing. That was the whole because that would be an option for us. For me, it's not. But thank you very much.
Okay.
Just to say this, the university is very pleased to be partnering in this project through a variety of different routes. It's a good thing for the city to be doing.
And it gives us the opportunity to pitch for other funding, because as with the hugely successful impact that you've had on Connected Cambridgeshire, it helps if we've got money that we can get from other sources. So we've got a list of potential projects on page 47 and 8, which is Appendix C. Any other comments? So we happy to approve the recommendations on page 41? Okay. Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think we've agreed that. No, thank you for all the work that's been put in. Yeah, we are a city that has got some unique talents in both the university and in the business sector, as well as the need for us to tackle transport in innovative ways, and this could make some inroads. We will wait and work and support and see whether we need to put any further resources in if necessary. Thank you. Okay, we move to item 9, which is the forward planning. We've got quite a significant number of projects coming through in the autumn. So on page 50, for instance, we've got a large agenda for November. There isn't going to be a meeting at the beginning of September, but we've got some items for October. We need to do some further work on the congestion consultation process, and obviously come forward with more details on that.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. My colleague here, who doesn't speak anymore, has reminded me that we should welcome Tanya Sheridan, who's sitting in the back row. So we could have probably said this at the beginning, but as we're near the end, I thought we'd at least fit it in. So we'd like to welcome Tanya Sheridan, who hasn't started yet, but has been appointed to be the director for the City Deal. So we now have our first employee. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. I should also point out that Aaron is an employee as well, so there are two of us.
Okay, there are now two. Oh, right. Okay, so we have two appointees. Okay. Well, thank you. And that doesn't deny the fact that there is many inputs, as you will see from the people in the room and the work that's underway. So thank you for joining us, Tanya. We look forward to you giving us the reports on the future work programme later. So thank you for everybody's inputs. We have, in terms of future meetings, we've got an informal meeting planned only in September. Our next formal meeting will be on the 1st of October, and so we welcome your inputs today, and we look forward to continuing to deliver the programme. We will also await with interest any further additions by the government to devolution and opportunities that Cambridgeshire might play a part in that too. All right, well, thank you for everybody's inputs. I declare the meeting closed.